Hi, everyone. Welcome to Ramblings from the Little Shed. I'm your host, Holly B. And as always, I have my nifty sidekick, Rogan.
I got nifty this time.
I
Oh
know.
my
I'm trying to
God.
switch it up every time.
Yeah, I
you know,
noticed that you do, and I really enjoy
keeping it
it.
fresh,
Hi,
keeping it real. Yes.
I'm Rogan, and my
Our
voice is
very,
cracking.
yeah, no kidding.
Sorry.
Our very, very special guest, and I am fangirling big time here. Becca Syme is here with us, and I'm super duper grateful to have you.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And I will say, nifty is one of the best descriptor words ever. So to have nifty applied to you is like, that's a high praise right there.
Like, huge compliment.
Mm-hmm. Big
Now,
deal.
I'm beaming.
Rogan's heard some real doozies come out of my mouth, but especially on the streets of Toronto. He's like, Mom,
Doozy's
please,
bad
not
or
here."
doozy's good? Bad, I
Both.
assume.
Both. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
God.
But if I may share, Becca, that, my signature look is buffalo plaid, and you pulled out the niftiest pair of glasses I have ever seen in my life because they are buffalo plaid. And if I wasn't fangirling hard before, I am now. So thank you for that. That is uplifting and makes me smile.
Oh, good. I have to give a shout out to Pair Eyewear for making these magnetic clip glasses. I was just showing them earlier. I have a pile next to my desk that's probably like 6 inches tall.
Yes, I saw it.
And they were like, "Do you have buffalo plaid?" And I pulled out the ones, and
You came ready.
I did.
Yeah.
Pair Eyewear is amazing. I'm prepared, locked and loaded.
I don't think we have Pair Eyewear here in Canada.
That's a good question. I should check if it's able to be shipped to Canada. I'm not sure, but if no one has done this yet in Canada, I'll be surprised if Pair's not there, because it's become such a big deal to have these interchangeable frames that are magnetized. By the way, great business idea, Canada, if no one has done it yet. Just saying.
Well, I had a ring set, and Chameleon was the name of it. And so you could pop out the centers. Had you ever seen that? Sort of like the same concept. I still have those rings. I loved them. I haven't seen it in years. But Rogan, I feel like you should sneak away and go grab a buffalo plaid shirt. No, I'm kidding. All right.
Hold that thought.
Oh, okay. Yep. I'll keep talking.
Wait. He's got one.
Hang on, folks.
I try and wear a plaid every day, but I was rushing today. But I came prepared. We're going to be cozy today. Not professional at all.
Aww.
We are literally all wearing buffalo plaid right now. All three of us.
This is the most aesthetically pleasing people trifecta
I'm gonna hide
at
my
a podcast.
Purple shirt.
No,
you can't see
compliments. It compliments. Becca, you are a force. You are a leader. You are a writer, a podcaster. And I reached out to you in November because I heard episode 120, as I call it, and it moved me. And I was walking down, in my neighborhood. I had my AirPods in, and I was just motoring down the road, and I could hear the emotion in your voice when you were speaking of your cat. And I thought, this is the time for me. I'm reaching out to people. And what's the worst? You never answer. You say no. You said yes. And you're here with us tonight. And I'm super grateful for that. And we would love to talk about your cat and how he or she may have influenced your creativity or your life.
Yeah, Mikhail. His name is Mikhail, or was. He's passed since, but even still, even after having passed, I had Mikhail for 15 years, and he was a Russian blue cat, so he was very active, like just jumping around all the time. It was how he got his name Mikhail, because originally when he was younger, he would do these flips like a ballerina. And I was like, that looks like Mikhail Baryshnikov, because he was Russian, blue, right? So I was like, so that's how he got his name, was he would just like jump in the air and like twist around 5 times. It was amazing. Like he just had this, he was so agile. And, but what made him my like creative friend in terms of like, I did a huge part of my writing career he was there for. He was there for like all the big stuff. And he was so near me all the time. He was physically, if I was in the house, he was wherever I was. And so I think I just started to associate him with like this safety feeling of like having a heartbeat on your chest, because he would often sit like on my neck. And so I did a lot of regulating in terms of like finding safety. And I think I find the highest level of creativity when I feel like everything is right, like everything is right with the world and all things are good. And I feel like cozy and happy, and I can just write. And so I think a big portion of that was like, he was just kind of my little avatar. He was always around and always with me. And, yeah, so even though he's gone, I still think he has a huge impact um on my storytelling. He shows up consistently. Like there is a gray cat in a decent portion of the stuff that I write, because I just love him.
That's amazing. And we were chatting earlier before we started recording, but when I asked you about that episode, because I was looking for it and I just couldn't find it today, but I do remember most of the parts that I listened to. I just wanted to refresh. And I follow your podcasts regularly. So the odd thing was that one sort of slipped in for some reason, and it wasn't in the usual order. And so, Mikhail, thank you for connecting us. And, things happen in a wondrous way for sure. But any thoughts of another cat at some point, or is it he just have paws that are too big to fill?
He really does. That's a good way to put it. I tried to get another cat for a while recently, and I found that I was looking too much to try to replace what he brought. Like I even sort of found myself when I went cat shopping is the wrong word, but like to the pound sort of looking at animals. Like I would find myself looking at gray cats, right? Like trying to find this, like maybe it was just the breed of cat that I really just connect with. And so a couple of different times, actually, there would be gray cats in the pound, and I would go and sit with them in the little room, and they put you in there, right? And it was like, this just isn't it. And I almost got through the adoption process with one of them, and I just kept pausing and being like, I don't think this is right. And then I found a cat who, interestingly, okay, so this story is like, you may have to Google this because nobody believes me when I tell it, but it did actually happen. There was a house, a rescue house in St. Paul, which is where I live, where they found 80 cats in a woman's house.
Right.
Like sort of a hoarder situation. And she had 80 cats, and they had to come in and like rescue all of them. And they had to find homes for many of them very, very quickly. And so there was like a huge influx of animals. But of course, she was the only human in the house. And all of the cats were like just in one big poop pen, basically, right? The whole, like everything in the house was just covered in cat goop, right?
Yeah.
And so I spent about 2 weeks training her how not to be nose blind about the difference between her potty and not her potty, right?
Right.
And it just kind of hit me at a time I had a death in someone who's very close to me passed. And I just kind of got overwhelmed, and I was like, this is not either what I need. So I've kind of had 2 false starts in terms of cat ownership recently. And this last one made me pull back and be like, do I really want another pet, or am I trying to recreate this feeling that I had with Mikhail that was so great? And maybe I need to just let that have been what it was, and not try to have it again, you know?
Not try to force anything.
Yeah, because you truly, in that podcast episode, I heard how you honored Mikhail and the relationship. You honored the relationship that you had with him.
Yeah.
And so I think you're right, because when we lost Chance, which was, gosh, 13 years ago, I think. No,
Oh my
probably
God.
more.
Yeah. Something like that.
Anyways, Gary, my husband was like, well, when are you going to get another dog? I know you're going to go out there and get another one. And I really did try to take that time. And so when I found Cash, I know now that I was trying to replace Chance because Cash was so challenging. And there were those moments when I thought, oh, I can't do this again. Like this isn't Chance. Like Chance was the perfect dog from the moment we took him home. He was 2 years old. He had his own history, but he was the perfect dog. And I consider him like my soul dog. And Cash just flipped our lives around. And I see now that there was a reason for that, but in that moment, so I think that I was looking to have another chance in my life. So I understand that, and I respect that because you're taking a step back and realizing, okay, this isn't Mikhail, and we had that. Doesn't mean there won't be another pet in your life or whatever that may look like.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
wonderful. Now, Mikhail had a great influence on your creativity, and you are a very creative individual. So can you tell us more about who Becca is and all of the wonderful things that you offer to this writerly world? And yeah.
Yeah, I since I can remember, have wanted to write, like, since I was, since I knew what a story was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, probably since I heard the first story that I ever heard, I wanted to make more of them, right? Like, I love the living actually inside of somebody else's skin. Is so interesting to me, just trying to understand how people are different and how people find the things that they want in life, right? Like how, because every story has a goal of some kind. And so when the person gets what they want or doesn't, right? Because some of those stories are like that as well. Um, uh, that has always interested me. And so it's not a huge surprise that I would get into author support in terms of that is another opportunity to enter into people's stories and try and understand how to get them what they want. Um, just not in the fictional world in that,
Right.
in that realm, doing it for real people. And actually it's interesting that you asked me to make a connection between those two because I noticed this about myself the other day, even just listening to someone talk where they weren't an author and I didn't really know them. And I found myself telling their story back to them in a way that was like more, you have the agency to get what you want, right? And I realized like that's also sort of what I do in coaching, is I try to help people understand how maybe the way they thought about themselves was slightly skewed from their past, or it made them think something about themselves that probably isn't true, just because life does that to us and we can't always control it. And I found myself sort of recognizing that I try to help people see their life stories in a way that makes them feel like they have what they need and they can do what they might think they can't do, and then help them figure out how do they get that thing. So on some level, even as a coach, I'm still just a storyteller by nature.
I should say, what a cool perspective on what you do. You're a storyteller in this different real world kind of way.
Yeah, because we live in the stories that we tell ourselves, right? Like if you were a person who, because this is a common one that I see, right? Like people who are very empathetic, for instance, who have been told most of their lives that like, oh, that's so weak. Like you cry all the time or, whatever. And then you see what happens with empathy when someone is able to validate what you feel for the first time and you didn't realize, like, yeah, I just needed someone to validate that I am not an idiot or not crazy or not stupid. And I really saw or felt this thing that I saw and felt, and that person with that talent for empathy is kind of able to see it as a superpower in a way that maybe the story they were living in previously didn't allow them to see that, because of how their story had been told back to them by the world. Like, you don't belong here. Who you are is not welcome here. You're weird and stupid and you're too emotional and you're too, and people throw those words at us all the time, like you're too this and you're too that and etc. And we often don't realize that objectively, this thing, empathy is a great example, is actually a superpower and could be used for, like, to change the whole world. You may not have known that because your story didn't let you see that yet, but there's a whole different perspective you haven't considered yet. And here, let me give you the perspective of people who have used empathy to do these amazing, life-changing things, that maybe you can learn how to be more like that instead of seeing yourself as this weak carpet, doormat, like, whatever. It's like, oh no, that's not it at all. That's a story you've been living inside that's not aligned with what's true about the world. It's not that person's perspective was actually wrong who made you feel that way. So, but we live out of that because it's the only way that we know how to interpret the world around us.
Yeah. And often it's ourselves telling us, because of the world telling us that story. And so that outside perspective, like you said, so valuable. Oh, I know for me, especially, that's been valuable in the past, and it continues to be.
Yep. 100%.
And I feel like you're speaking to me directly because, I've been that empathetic person, empath, highly emotional, who was always embarrassed by that. And I'm discovering, and I love that you're putting words to it, because it really resonates with me that, in the last few years, I've thought being emotional is not weak. Although society may have said that in my younger years for ever and ever, but it's a way for me, I realize now, to release the emotion. Whether that's happiness, sadness, frustration, mad. I can remember being in primary school and always crying, but it was because I couldn't express myself through words. And once I got those tears out, I was better. And now I realize, okay, that is a superpower. And also, it drives me to write these, stories filled with love, because, and I pushed that away. I tucked it away. In fact, I thought, oh, that's not what people want to hear. But I heard it today again, that another author felt the same way, that, nobody wants to hear these light and fluffy stories. And it's like, but it's the only way I can write, and it's the only way I'm authentic. So for you to put it into perspective and using that superpower, thank you.
Yeah. And the other thing I love is bringing in, like, a scientific perspective about it, right? So, like, because a lot of people don't realize that, like, emotions are data. We think of emotions as being like, because they are subjective, right? So we think of emotions as being so unreliable or whatever, like, and then some of it is because people just don't take the time to understand it. But every emotion, from a scientific perspective, is a reaction of a subjective person to an objective experience that doesn't fit somehow with what they thought was happening, right? So if I have both in positive and negative ways, like all emotion that we feel is a data point where we're trying to reconcile something from internal and out and external world, right? Because we are subjectively experiential. All humans have a subjective point of view, right?
Right.
So when I feel something, it is by design, biologically, it is meant to either create action in me so that I will react to the difference and maybe set a boundary, maybe say no, maybe change, maybe or I will do something connective because we're also very relational beings, right? Like maybe we connect over our shared anger about, the color of the overpass, and that becomes connective for us because we, yeah, like please don't
Oh.
paint it, whatever, right? And that emotion expression creates connection in us. And then we have a richer, better, more full life experience. That's also part of it. But it may also create action like somebody hurts you and someone hears you say that hurt me. And really it was someone shouldn't have done that thing that hurt you. And it's the emotion that tells us it wasn't okay for that to happen. And then that allows us to maybe come around you and say, you're right, that shouldn't have happened. We're going to make a change because your internal experience didn't align with your expectation and you felt that sadness or that fear. And then you're expressing that emotion allowed us to have a data point that understood that life wasn't supposed to be this way. And then we changed something because of it. Right. So like it is data, just in exactly the same way that math is data. And what frustrates me about how when people don't understand that, because we're never taught these things, right? It's too complicated to sort of teach in school. Plus, you have to have a developed prefrontal cortex, which doesn't happen until we're out of school, right? So like we can't always understand this stuff. But when you understand that emotions are data, suddenly empaths take on this whole new power structure because you have the capacity to create action where maybe people who don't have as high of a gift of empathy were not listening. And what we're saying is each individual person matters and their subjective experience matters. So we're maybe going to make changes based on how you feel because someone is making life difficult for you in a way that it is not fair. So it's really a fairness response on some level, emotions are. And the thing that frustrates me about people who don't get what emotions are is that they keep talking about emotions as though they're meaningless just because they're subjective. But even a subjective reality is valuable and valid. It's just not objectively provable. So the way that we interact with each other is we inhabit each other's bodies on some level when we feel the feelings of another person, which is like the ultimate gift you give someone else is to see the world from their perspective and validate that perspective. And that's what creates connection and relationship and safety and belonging and all these things we need to feel biologically in order to maintain life as humans. And the fact that we don't know enough about it to validate and value people who are emotionally capable, who have high ranges of emotional vocabulary and sensitivity, it boggles my mind that we don't value this more because, and even just to do another like deep dive, stories are the only things that create change in people ever. Even facts on their own don't create change. They need context and they need difference, right? They need a goal orientation and a solve, that open and closed loop of stories in order to make any difference. If I just told you that, let's say, 10 million people in the world are good at thinking, right? That's just a data point. It doesn't mean anything.
Right.
But if I contextualize that, all of a sudden we create action points, right? And so now the story brings some kind of meaning, which creates shared value, which can create action. And even just the ability to contextualize data, which is what we do when we tell stories, something that people who are higher empathy, like in empathetic, have an easier time entering that. And again, people don't understand. And then they miss the value of those things because they don't understand the kind of how it fits in the larger context of life.
That is so fascinating. Oh,
it is.
yeah.
I mean, you're sparking so many questions now. So what kind of readers would those people be? Never mind that they may not even be a writer, but would they be able to, how would they interpret story?
If they were not empathetic?
If they were not empathetic, sorry. Yeah.
So people who are not empathetic do treat emotions as data points still. They just, unless they find value in them, they're probably more conscious of the fact that they are data points, but a lot of them would render them worthless because they don't see the action or the connection. Or the meaning sort of behind emotions, but they can definitely see that other people have these feelings that rise and fall in them, and that feels like a data point to them, right? And so there definitely are people who are not as versed in emotional cadence or emotional value, who can see them as data points as well, but they would see it almost like a structure that would fit something, like it would create an action point in other people, and then they can learn, like, oh, when someone cries, I need to react to them in this way. And if they're a compassionate person who is not highly empathetic, they will value that other person feeling good about themselves, because there are plenty of people who can be non-empathetic but also compassionate and kind.
True.
It's just,
Very
how
true.
do you treat those? How do you see emotions and their data points?
It would be interesting to have those two types of individuals read the same novel story and have them write a 1-paragraph review
Right.
or just describe what they felt in the process.
Let's get a focus group together. Let's do it.
Right.
I love that framing, though, and yeah, and you're right. Especially a lot of people that I know, and like even also in certain academic areas, like it's so easy to just treat objective truth as the thing with value, when in reality, all that we are just a bunch of subjective experiences. That's all that a human is, and so why not give that the value that it deserves, right?
100%.
100%, yeah.
I think this is where we get to a place that we can't hear each other, right? And like, if you think about, I do a lot of consuming of relationship content, just because, like, I mean, I'm in a relationship, but also I find it fascinating. I find relationships really interesting to study. But there was a happiness study that was done that has some flaws in it, like the construction of the study, but it was a longitudinal happiness study. And they were wondering about, like, what would make people feel the most happy at the end of their life. Like, when they reached the end, what would they look back on and say made me the happiest? And people, by and large, their answers were their relationships, regardless of, anything else that had happened in their life. Their relationships were the thing that made them the happiest. But because we are, by and large, as humans, we are very good at survival, and we are very bad at predicting what will make us happy when we're looking forward, right? We think that, oh, it'll make me happy when I finally get to this place or that place, and then it doesn't. We don't realize that we're bad at predicting what'll make us happy, but we're really good at looking backwards and naming what made us happy. So I do a lot of consuming of relationship content, trying to help understand how to help people feel more of that secure and happy feeling. And something I notice a lot is in, like, divorce proceedings or something, when you see, like, you can't consume relationship content without hearing a little bit about divorce. And so much of the discussion of previous divorce is that we grew away from, in a relationship, like, you grow away from letting each other's internal world mean something. So, like, your subjective experience and my subjective experience, at the very beginning, they mean something to each other because of chemicals in the brain, right? But then the people who have longer positive relationships continue to let that subjective experience of the person that I'm currently in a relationship with matter to me in a way that changes my behavior sometimes. And that validation of the subjectivity of someone else is part of what creates that long-term, really valuable relationship. And I think that is very telling in terms of how we should be valuing each other's subjectivity and listening and being curious and wanting other people to have a good life in addition to us having a good life, is that is the thing that will make everyone the happiest at the end of their lives, is when they have good relationships, not just romantic, but all types of
Right.
relationships. And that is the food of relationships, is validating each other's subjectivity.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
there's 2 points here that I would like to bring up. And
Mhm.
when you say, because now you've given me I'm going to leave here with the thought of, okay, when I, look back on my life, I'm also very content with the fact, I mean, my relationships, of course, number one, my husband, my children, my family, my friends. But I'm very happy that I've reconciled this relationship with myself as well, because
Mhm.
I kept her so far away, right? I kept everything at a distance. And so, food for thought on that one. I'll be making some journal entries this evening on that. But also, when you take two individuals who have been together for so long and they evolve in very different ways. And sometimes one grows in a completely different direction. And let's say the other one may just stay in the same space that they always were and they never really change their thought patterns. How does that factor into the sustainment of their relationship?
Yeah, as long as the person who's growing can still validate the
Mhm.
subjective not just autonomy, but really like agency of that other person, right? Like if you can
Mhm.
see their unchangingness as a value.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of my dad as one of these people. My dad loves to read. He loves to learn, but he's primarily learning like things about physics, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Or like geology. Like he's learning about the outside world. He's very fascinated, but he's not very interested in, let me learn more about myself, right? Like that has not become a study of his. Maybe it will later in his life. But my mom is the opposite. She's become very interested in her internal life. And if you can continue to validate, and they've been together for, how old am I? Almost 50 years now.
Mhm. Okay.
And so the more that they continue to validate, like my dad learned something about Teddy Roosevelt and it's interesting to her, right? And she's able to validate his subjective interest and his subjective experience and find some level of interest in, the historical data that he might be digging up, or about my dad's a farmer, so he talks about the crops a lot, right? So
Right.
it's
Right.
like, if you can find some kind of interest in things that grow, you're going to be of interest to my dad. And so if you can validate that
Mhm.
reality of his, even if he's not growing in the same way that she is,
Mhm.
then you're still going to maintain that closeness because you're still continuing to honor each other's subjective truth. I
Yes.
think where it becomes difficult is specifically when a person who is in a relationship with someone for a long time grows in a way that makes them unable to validate the subjective experience of their either friend, because I see this happen probably more with friendships than I
Mm-hmm.
do
Very true.
in marriages. Because usually in marriages, you grow. I mean, not that it doesn't happen, but like you're very aware when each other's changing because you spend so much time together.
Mhm.
Um, Although it still happens, but in like friendships, you're not together 24/7. So sometimes your friends grow and very quickly in ways that you can't grow in the same direction that they
Mhm.
do, and then eventually you can't validate their subjective reality anymore, and you have to not be friends. And I think that sort of
Mhm.
is the turning point, right? Is even if you are not changing, like my dad is the same person inside that he's been, I think, since I was probably like 6 years old, right?
Mhm. Right.
Which is a long time ago. And but if we can validate the subjective truth of that still, and there still is a character there that is good and a care for us or me or my mom or whoever that is good, and he's still willing to validate our subjective realities, then there still is a valid relationship there. But I
Yes.
think the changes happens when you can't enter into each other's skin
Right.
anymore.
And
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
think that friendships are people don't realize that it is okay to, separate.
Separate.
um,
Yeah.
just separate. I mean, and accept that for what it is. But we hold so much commitment and loyalty to these friendships that sometimes we don't realize it's not what's best for those two individuals because they are going in very different directions.
Yeah, you're holding more energy for the commitment than
Yes.
the person they actually are now, or who you actually are now. Yeah, I see that a lot.
Yeah, that's so true too, because as you age, like the context never changes, right? Your history with them never changes,
Right.
but your present with them changes a lot, right? Like, yes, we used to do all these things together, maybe when we were in high school or maybe even university or something. We would do all these things together, but a lot of our getting back together revolves around the context that we used to share and like sharing stories about what it
Mhm.
was like when we were in
The
university
memories.
together or something. Yeah, the
Yeah.
memories
Yeah.
and it's less about making new experiences
Yeah.
happen, especially if you don't both like to kind of do the same things and
Mhm.
enter into the same spaces anymore. I don't think we make it safe enough for people to say to us. Now, I don't always feel comfortable when people say this to me of like, we've kind of grown past the time when we would spend a lot of time together. And I really loved what we did and it was
Mhm.
great. But if we're not headed in the same direction anymore, I want to free you up from this expectation that you have to
Mhm.
continue to care for this relationship in the same way. Put that energy into somebody who's going to make you happy as a friend um and allow us to do friendship breakups in a
Hmm.
way that honors
Yeah.
kind of both before it gets bad, right? Like before
Yeah.
it
Yeah, I
before it
don't think that
turns
we're
out.
there yet, unfortunately. We just tend to ghost each other or,
We
have this
do.
awkward
Oh,
silence, and
yeah.
then we go into this, "Well, I think he's mad at me," or, "I think she's mad at me," and we drum up then we create news stories in our
Uh-huh.
heads and minds, so Becca, you are an author coach, and, are you still actively writing, or you do have a lot of publications, but may I ask you if you're working on something new?
I am. I do still have some fiction stuff that's kind of ongoing.
Okay.
I have a mystery series that I have books in that I still want to write at some point.
Right.
It's weird. I don't know if you all are like this. This is like a personality trait of mine. I'm such a sense of place writer. That like I really connect a lot with a particular location when I'm writing about it. So a decent portion of my past series that I've written, both in my cozy mystery um, uh, platform and also in my other platforms, were all set in Montana. And
Mm,
when I moved away from Montana, it's like I can't really enter that same space
Mm.
anymore and be as inspired to like create new stuff there. So I'm currently trying to decide whether I will do a completely separate location. Like I used to write historical romances and I've written in like Scotland, right? So like I've never
mhm,
lived there, so I know I can create things that haven't lived inside.
mm,
But right now I'm doing so much nonfiction writing that I'm not writing fiction as much, but I am trying to figure out the next phase of my fiction writing. And the current most likely path is that I have a historical mystery series set in the UK that I think I'm going to work on. That's like a Regency mystery series. That's probably going to be the thing that I
okay,
work on for a while to try to get past this like sense of place grief
right.
about
Or
not being in
Hmm.
Montana anymore.
a trip to Montana?
It's interesting. I moved away 3.5 years ago and I've never been back.
Mm,
And
mhm,
I have to go back in September, which will be almost 4 years,
mhm,
just a little over 4 years since I was last back when I'm there.
uh-huh,
And so it'll be really interesting to see if going back makes me more or less likely to write those books. Because
Hmm.
I do feel a little bit like the Montana that I used to live in is probably similar to how I feel about Mikhail now that I'm thinking about it, is like, maybe it's okay for me to just leave Montana behind me and, and enter into new phases of my creative life and not be so tied to that land.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I resonate with that because I went to Niagara on the Lake earlier in 2025 for a writer's retreat. I had never been there,
Hmm.
and I went to visit the village or the town, and it was beautiful, and the setting was perfect for a cozy mystery or a sweet romance, whichever. Doesn't matter. Any kind of genre would be fitting. But of course, I went back to the hotel, and it just was flooding in my mind with these thoughts. So I started scribbling. And I look back on that and I think, where was my mind when I was jotting down all those ideas? So I'm thinking either I need a trip to Niagara on the Lake again.
Yeah.
Like, how am I going to recreate all of those little shops and the personalities that I met and that bookstore owner who was an older woman who everything was wrapped in plastic and there's a sense of scenery and space when you're there, but how do you reconnect? So maybe you're right. It is what it is for then. And if it wasn't something that I pursued quickly when I came back, then maybe it just needs to be there or visit.
Or maybe you'll go back to it too someday. Like
Maybe.
maybe
Yeah.
you'll wake up from a dream and suddenly feel inspired like you
Uh-huh.
were then.
Uh-huh.
I do think it's also possible that some of those experiences are just meant to be what they are, right?
Exactly.
Like it was meant to be this amazing experience that we
Mhm.
had in Niagara on the Lake, or I had a similar experience in New Hampshire this summer where I was like, oh, I think I could write a cozy mystery set here and I
Mhm.
can see it. And I was taking pictures and making notes.
Yeah.
And then when I got home, it's like, mm, that I just don't, I don't have a desire to re-enter that. Right.
Mhm.
So like, I'm trying to just leave it and let it be
Yeah.
what it was going to be. And weirdly, all of the fiction that I have started now is in Minneapolis. So like, I guess maybe I'm just going to have to give in and write something here and
There we
stop.
go. And I wonder
Mhm.
if we
Worrying about it.
romanticize some of the places we've been, right? And so as writers, we're like,
Yeah.
oh, I could write a story here. I could write. So maybe, but
I
there are
definitely
many
do that.
different paths.
I'm
Oh,
I'm
really?
I'm giving thought now of when I work on anything, if I relate to this, and I do to an extent, but I think I find I'll go to a place or I'll have that experience, and then I will create the work to try and like hang on to it as much as possible. Um, like I'm just thinking, for example, like when I finally went to Alberta a couple of years ago for the first time and like seeing the Rockies for the first time. And I've been back a couple times since then, but it hit me and I just would, I couldn't, I didn't want to stop writing or working on, I think I was doing a lot of poetry at the time, just because it was the only way that I could like get back to there. And now that I think about it, I very rarely center things where I am currently living myself. But just Toronto right now. Partially, I think this place, I love Toronto, just doesn't really inspire me in the same way. But yeah, no, it's
Mm,
neat to think about. And it's interesting to
yeah.
hear different perspectives on how a place can really affect you.
Are you typically inspired by things in nature?
Yes, like 100%. And that's
Yeah.
probably a
Sure.
bigger factor than
That's a
anything else for
huge
me.
factor.
Yeah.
Yep. The only reason I bring that up is because that's a personality trait. Like when I mentioned I'm a sense of place writer, it's my personality. I have a strength called connectedness, and connectedness is like the kind of ultimate your feet are always in the earth
Hmm.
strength, right? Like and like if I put my feet on the ground, like the real ground,
Mm-hmm.
um I can feel alive in a way that makes me want to be creative, right?
Mm.
Like I used to write my parent, and the reason you brought up the Rockies, and I'm like, oh, this was it for me, because the Rockies if anyone has never been to the Rockies, and I feel the same way, I used to live in Calgary, and I feel the same way about the Canadian Rockies that I do about the American Rockies, which is there is something about the air, like it is the closest you will ever get to being like absolutely devoid of human contact in that space. And like the first time that when I take people home to Montana, and the first time that people see the galaxy, like when you are like
huge.
right
Yeah.
at night when it's so pitch black in the Rockies, and it's like the air is so much clearer because it's up so much higher, right? It's at such an elevation. It is like it's the closest I've come to watching people have a spiritual experience, an out of body spiritual experience. And when you have a personality trait like this, which I would not be surprised to hear if you had this, I don't know how to be creative apart from nature. Like it's just very difficult for me. And my parents had a house. I mean, I lived in the Rockies in Bozeman, but my parents had a house where you could have a view of the mountains from every outdoor space where they were. And I used to write on the porch and just like look at 5 mountain ranges at a time, right? Like from where I was. And even though I wasn't always writing about people being outdoors or people being in the mountains, there was something about the physical proximity to nature that was so centering. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I don't know if you can get it maybe by the river in Toronto potentially, but probably not. But I don't know if you can get that same feeling if you have that personality trait outside of being physically in nature.
One of the things actually that I do, and this maybe could sound like counterintuitive, but I find video games, I'm a huge gamer. I work in games for a career.
Nice.
I find I get a lot of the same inspiration, especially as I play a lot of games that are based in the real world. My favorite game, or one of my favorite games actually, has the Rockies as the backdrop. And so that's kind of like my cheat shortcut to try and feel these things. And there's also the added bonus, something that inspires me, is to see our world depicted in an artistic way. Like there are people who made these decisions to draw the light this way, to feature these specific elements of the Rockies and why they did that. And so I like that filtering as well. Obviously, it's nowhere near the same thing, but I find when I'm not traveling or going to these places, one of the other things that actually does kind of trigger a lot of creativity for me is playing games.
Yeah.
So
I can see that.
That's like my shortcut.
Yeah. I listen to the Skyrim soundtrack when I'm writing because I feel like that. Yeah. Right.
Every day at work.
Oh my gosh. I don't know what it is about that soundtrack.
Far Horizons.
I could listen to the streets of Whiterun like all day long. All day long.
Bop. I tried learning the city gates a while ago on the piano. That's one of my favorites too.
Yeah. Oh, do you play the piano too? Oh, me too.
Awesome. Yeah. I played a lot as a when I was younger, and I've had a smaller, not full 88 keyboard for the last 6 years while I've been in school. Just today, I actually bought my first 88 key. Yeah, that's right. Holly, surprise. So I'm gonna get back into it. Actually, one of my main motivations for it was I've been listening to a lot of game soundtracks recently, and I just been feeling the need, you know.
Okay, I'm going to give you a something to go look at. I'm assuming that you may have heard this guy already, but Patrick Pleichman is a YouTuber who does piano scores on the piano, like video game soundtracks, or like I bought the Interstellar, like he does a orchestration of it and he sells them. When you find the video, he'll have a link to purchase the score or the piece. And I learned his the Man of Steel, the Superman one, and he does have a Skyrim one now, which I haven't looked at yet because I'm waiting. I've got to do some other pieces of his first. But he listens to orchestrations and then he writes the piano version of it. And when you listen to it, you're like, how is this not an orchestra? It sounds so amazing. But then you can also buy the music if you want to play it. So anyway, Patrick with a K, Pleichman.
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
Yep.
Patrick I wrote it
Pleichman.
down. I'm looking at this immediately afterwards. Oh man. Music for me,
Well,
music goes such a long way to enhance storytelling. It's one of the reasons I
It
love
does.
games as well.
Video games, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's why I wanted to work in the industry too. It is such a just multidisciplinary way to tell a story. It's just, yeah. Some of the most like emotional, empowering stories I've experienced were in this medium. And I just love it so much. And I'm thankful that I
Yeah.
could actually start to investigate that now as I'm getting out of school and working on some projects and whatnot.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, music is storytelling too, and I love it so much.
Mhm.
Nothing brings me, if I'm gonna cry about something, it's definitely a song that I heard in a long time,
1,000%.
or
Yeah.
that, and nothing encapsulates, for me at least, a feeling, a place, or like a time as a song does. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's powerful
Mhm.
stuff. Oh,
Rogan's the
It
one who
really
got
is.
me into being able to work and listen to music at the same time. Not
Ah.
words, not lyrics,
Yeah, I
but
can't listen to lyrics
so now
either.
my
yeah.
new thing is Viking music. It's I can work to Viking music, believe it or
I need
not.
to send you although I guess it has lyrics in it. I was going to say I need to send
Some
you
lyrics are
some
okay.
Viking songs, but
Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Viking lyrics for some reason are okay for me because they're not in a language I
Chanting.
understand.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
chanting and
So I'm
yeah.
like, oh, I don't know
Yeah.
what they're saying, so I'm
Yeah.
not paying attention to it, right?
But I
doesn't
Okay,
draw
love it.
too much
I'll
focus.
send you something.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
I live in the land of the Vikings, so this is
Oh
like,
my goodness.
yeah. So
Road trip.
this is yeah.
We're gonna
I
get
love
some
this.
pear eyewear and some
I know, right? And get Viking music, and I'm telling you, there's something about like every once in a while the connectedness moment for me. It's like I needed the reminder. I think that um so the music is a huge deal for me in storytelling, and specifically the alignment with certain musics and certain stories. So like I listen to certain things when I need to be in a mood to write, and I forget how quickly I can get in the mood by just playing the songs. And I think I needed that sort of reminder about like, oh, just put the music on in the morning and
Mhm.
it's going to make you want to write that story. So
The
yeah,
novel I
thank you
just
for that.
finished was thanks to Chris Stapleton.
Really?
I listened to his
Ah,
playlist over and over and over, and like I said, I couldn't usually work to lyrics, but I
yeah.
could with him. And so I would
Oh,
play it and I would
interesting.
write. And then eventually, like you said, they connected.
Mm-hmm.
So the next manuscript that I'm working on right now is Lainey Wilson. I never listened to
Oh,
these people before. So I'm connecting these songs to the stories.
yeah.
So you're
I
right.
do think music and story align so
Yeah.
effectively.
Yeah.
Like there are things you can't express. I always feel like one of the reasons that I learned piano as a very young, I started learning piano at 2.5,
Oh,
Mm.
wow.
because both my parents were so musical,
Hmm.
and and they would just play, and I was like, I need to figure out how to do this, and so I would just go try to plunk around and figure out how to play. And my parents were like, you clearly need lessons, so let's get you some piano lessons. But a huge portion of why I like music so much is that it expresses an internal reality that I can't communicate any other way. So, like, I know all of these songs now that I
Yeah.
use them to sort of elicit emotion out of myself when I can't get emotion any other way.
I've been feeling recently. I've been feeling a lot of just like chaos and
Mhm,
a need to effectively express myself in a way
mhm,
that I can like trust.
mhm.
And that's what really like did it for me. I need to get my piano again. This is something that
Yep.
I like you said, wordless expression. I think music just gets into your brain, your soul, in a way
Mhm,
that nothing else really can. So
mhm.
Well, I'm sure the
100% agree on that.
vibrations of the notes,
They
even
do.
just
Yep,
you embody them and they become
you do.
part of who you are. And
Especially
so,
when you play. Like, it's so
Mhm.
yeah.
I mean, yes, listening to music has always been helpful for me, it's great,
Mhm.
but there's something about, like, and I've been playing for so long too, that's part of it, like, I know a song that will communicate everything that I
Mhm.
feel. So, like, sometimes I can just sit down and put my fingers on the keyboard and just sort of let them go,
Mhm.
and then whatever it is that I need to play sort of comes out, and sometimes Like the other day, I found myself playing like Rachmaninoff and being really angry and, like just kind of like just pounding on the
Yeah.
keyboard,
Yeah.
right? And then sometimes it's like very sad, lamenty, like
Mhm.
a raindrop prelude or, like something that is more deep and soulful jazz music or
Mhm.
blues or gospel or something comes out and it's so expressive in a way that it will never be words for me that will ever be as expressive as
Mhm.
music. I
Hmm.
love words. I love stories,
Mhm.
but music connects on a different level than that for
Well,
me.
it's a different way to tell the story, and you become
Mhm.
the conduit for
Yep.
that story.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. This conversation took us in so many
We
different
went everywhere.
directions. We went everywhere
We
and
went to
we
the
could
Rockies.
keep
We went to Skyrim. We
going.
went to.
Yeah, I'm sure we could find a whole lot more connections. And I would
Yeah.
love to stare at those beautiful buffalo plaid
Right?
glasses all
Aren't they
night
great?
long.
They're really good.
They're so great.
You just gave me a close up. It's even better.
I love it.
Becca, my goodness, this has been such a pleasure to have you here, just having a conversation talking about Mikhail. Did I say that properly?
Mikhail, yeah.
Mikhail,
Yeah.
yes. And the love and the respect that you had for him and what he brought to your life and what you bring to people in the world today. Thank you for being a powerhouse of a woman who is a leader. And if you haven't listened to Becca's podcast, please do. We will link everything in the show notes. And I hope that we get to spend some time with you again. This was
Hmm.
wonderful.
Yeah,
And I
this
know
was so fun. Oh,
so
go ahead,
fun. I
Brogan.
agreed. I know I said it again, but like, or sorry, before, but I'll say it again. Like you just voiced personally so much that I've kind of had noodling. You put it in such an eloquent and like,
Mhm.
yeah. So I'm going to take a lot of what you spoke about with me tonight and think about it. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I appreciate that because I feel sometimes like there are so many things that strengths in particular we didn't even sort of touch on strengths, which I
Hmm.
love. I
Oh,
love that we
Hmm.
didn't because
yeah.
it's great to have a conversation without it sometimes, but
Mhm.
there's so much that strengths has taught me in terms of how to speak the language of people's hearts in a
Mhm.
way that cares for them in the process. Because I think there are a lot of like advertisers, for instance, who can figure out how to speak the language of your fear and make you feel you have to do something or else. And then there's, again, for me, connectedness is like, I want people to be able to integrate with the deepest parts of themselves because that level of safety is it's so centering and it makes us feel we can do anything, right? Like we're
Mhm.
capable of surviving or thriving or existing effectively in the world. And there's something about having studied that language so often that it's like I
Mhm.
just sometimes find myself saying the things that I'm like, oh yeah, that was that integration moment of like you may not have been able to say it out loud in the moment, but so many people who are like you have said it out loud in the past that it feels easy to kind of put words to that.
Hmm.
So I feel very, very lucky and blessed and grateful that I have the experience I have had because there is something about hearing your thoughts spoken out loud and not
Hmm.
realizing it that is really very validating and
Hmm.
securing.
Mhm.
And
I
focusing, just
agree.
like
And focusing.
putting the
Yep.
pin on it, like, oh yeah, that's what it is. The
That's
link
what I need to
between
do.
storytelling, empathy, it makes sense.
Because
Yeah.
we may
I
not
love
have
that.
had the words in our past to be able to put the two together. And I
Yep.
feel like that's happening more and more for me. And my word of the year is unstoppable for a reason.
Oh, nice. I like
Yeah,
that.
because I just feel like I'm finally, oh, right. Okay, that makes sense now for why I felt that way all those years.
Yeah.
So,
I like that. Well,
all
thank
right.
you.
Well, thank you. My
Thank you.
goodness.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, thank
Yeah.
you, thank you.
Uh,
All right. Well, we will chat with you again. And thank you so much for being here. And you are inspirational.
Thank you.